If you can relate to anything I'm saying right now and if you made it this far,
it looks like she's drinking out of a
masonry jar.
Well, not that the straw.
Oh,
like
the stainless steel
like,
jar.
Yeah, like when
conductor wand.
Yeah, conductor wand. It's like, oh my goodness. Just, I know it's bad for the environment. Just either drink out the cup or like get a plastic straw.
Right.
You're doing too much. That is the thing. If you need to work on something, young lady, get that metal straw out of your mouth.
Oh, he's triggered over the stainless steel straw. By the way, we are trying a new setup today. If you do appreciate it, smash the like button. And if you haven't done it yet, hit the subscribe. It helps.
It helps a lot.
Okay. Hey, everybody. This Kid Hero here. And we got a special guest today. We have...
Hey, Choppy Poppy here.
The Chops.
The Chopster.
Today we're actually going to be doing a reaction regarding this young lady's video. He doesn't know anything about it, so this is actually his first view. I've watched it once before, and it kind of said some things that were, in general, overall good. She's 22. She's trying to give people advice for their 20s, and again, she's still in the early years. Still, there were a few things that were off. I kind of wanted to do a reaction, had one of my friends come over to get his thoughts regarding it. And then hopefully we can provide, a little bit of insight on either what was said or what she possibly meant.
Yeah, let's check this.
Here we go.
your 20s are a joke, except for the joke is not funny and you are the punchline. I am the punchline. And it's like your 20s keep telling the same joke that's not funny. I don't think we give ourselves credit enough for what we have done, and I don't think that we're nice enough to ourselves. I think your 20s is the time to not be the bigger person. Curse them out today.
Let's stop right there. Okay. Automatically just writing off a decade of your life is dangerous. And I don't know, personally speaking, not being the bigger person, it only perpetuates that type of mind frame among your peers.
I think that was perfect. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt just because that's mainly for reaction purposes, but the video itself does include those, and you're right to comment on that. So we'll go ahead and continue.
Hey y'all, it's me, Jewel. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. If it's your first time here, hello, welcome. If it's not your first time here, then thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it. Things are a little bit different today. We have a different setup. We have a different background right here. And
what's your reaction regarding her?
I mean, she seems like a cute kid and not the look of somebody who's completely given up on their 20s.
Right.
So that's what I think about that.
No problem.
so go ahead, sit down, get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, or grab a snack, and let's talk about our 20s. So for a little bit of context, hello, my name is Jewel, like I said before. I am 22 years old. I just graduated college in May, and it's currently September as I'm filming this. And people always said that your 20s hit different, and I didn't quite know what that meant. And it always came from people who were much older than me. So I'm like, yeah, like your 20s are different than my 20s because you were 20 like 3 decades ago. Like it's not the same.
I don't necessarily have a problem with what she said. It's just it's that mindset. And now, while the scenery may be different, the technology is different, human emotion and human interaction, relationships, your love life, all that stuff is the same, no matter what year you're living in. To already dismiss yourself from the collective again by saying that you can't identify with what somebody's saying because of a generational gap or something like that, that just means that you've closed off your mind to learning off of from somebody else's experiences. Now, you don't have to necessarily take someone else's personal experience and solve problems that come up by theirs, but you take a little bit of something from each person you meet, whether they're in their 20s or they're you can get good advice from a 13-year-old. It doesn't matter. But that's a pretty big misconception. I think some of my best advice has been taken from people that, are on the outside fringes of society. Stopping and having a conversation with the guy that's asking for $1 outside the gas station, you might get a bit of wisdom that sticks with you for 20 years. So don't just necessarily write somebody off because their experience was in a different time than yours.
And I think I kind of took that the same way when she was like, you were 20 back, 2-3 decades ago. And either I'm assuming that was either one of her parents, possibly someone that was maybe a close relative. That's just a guess, but the fact that they tried to give her some advice and then she just immediately dismissed it, that was a little bit of a concern. It wasn't huge, and again, I don't know if she meant it like that or if that's just what she said and then just kind of easily dismissed it but didn't mean to purposely dismiss it.
And I'll give her the benefit of the doubt like that, because the only concept I have is what I'm seeing right now. And then the message that she's putting out right now has raised several flags for me. So, you know.
One thing I have learned in this life, if there's one takeaway I have from my 20s, listen to people who are older than you. You might think you know better, but like for the most part, you should take what they say into consideration, especially if it's like wise people or people who you.
And I think that was going along with what you said. So.
Yeah, see, so I if I were to let her talk a couple more minutes, then she would have came through. And I'm relieved that she said that after that.
Right. Now, like, once I graduate, I'm gonna have it all together. Like, I'm gonna know everything. I'm gonna be making those 6 figures once I get out of here.
And then you graduate into a pandemic. Now you're living back at home with your parents. This isn't the life you expected for yourself. They ask you how you are.
Yeah, and like I said before, that's something that we didn't. I myself, nobody, unless you were around in the Spanish flu or something like that, you haven't experienced something like this. For anybody, and whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s,
right?
Unless you're part of that 2%, that upper echelon of people, you're going to have financial worries. And so that in itself right there, with an uncertain future, that's especially when you need to work harder. So if you're in your 20s, repercussions of this, I'm no macroeconomist or anything like that, but I know that a lot of money has been lost. A lot of production, a lot of how the world works has changed during this. And I think that, it's going to have an impact on these kids that just graduated that may have picked a certain field of work. And depending on how this changes things, you might have to go back for a couple more years and re-identify. Only screams more importance on that time in your life, because at that time in your life you're still hungry. There's still a little glimmer of hope. Don't be jaded just yet. You know?
And you've been bringing up a lot of good points, and I'm trying to play the devil's advocate in between this. At the same time, even if you have a college degree, there have been some people in the past who still struggle to find a job. So just because, even though it is a crisis and being concerned as far as your own personal safety, but those loved ones around you, even if it wasn't a pandemic, doesn't guarantee that you would immediately find a job after you graduate.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
And everyone's situation is a little bit different. I totally understand that. But my thing is, and I keep saying this, and people keep telling me to stop saying this, but I think it's true. Your 20s are a joke. Your 20s are a joke, except for the joke is not funny and you are the punchline. I am the punchline. And it's like your 20s keep telling the same joke that's not funny while beating your ass and laughing at you.
I don't think it's the 20s.
Yeah, it's not the 20s. Because I think that's just life in general.
Yes, it is life, and as a whole, like you start to realize or notice more things about life.
Yeah, and that's what they call wisdom. You know, and that's how you get it. It's by finding out what you're made of. How resilient are you?
Yeah.
Because guess what? When you're 32, it's going to come pounding you harder because your health isn't going to be the same. You might not be sick. You don't have as much energy. Your living situation has changed. And you're responsible for more things. Maybe you've had children. Maybe you started a business. Who knows? There's all these other things. And let me tell you what, if you think that you're going to go through life and there's not going to be any setbacks, I don't care if you have a silver spoon covered in Grey Poupon stuck in your mouth, you're going to have problems. And those problems, according to your perception, they're going to be severe. And you have to have the resilience to get through that. Because especially if you have children, you're gonna have to be strong for them, because they're gonna have to get to that point where they're trying to fight through life themselves, and all we can do is get them prepared for that. A lot of what I'm hearing from her is emotional.
Yeah. And
it's very easy to get emotional when you're inside your own head like that. And if you're thinking about these things and you're thinking about them on a daily basis because your routine is completely thrown out the back door with the
Right.
situation that's going right now. So you have a lot more time to think. You have a lot more time to watch the scary news and stuff like that. And for somebody that young, that's just graduated college, you know, to feel so jaded, that's disheartening.
It is,
And we
yeah.
need to do a better job as a society, you know, to give young people the hope that they need to fight off that, to persevere. Unfortunately for myself, my circumstances weren't the greatest, and I'm sure as a lot of people. And if I didn't have any fight in me, I wouldn't be here right now, because some terrible, terrible things happened in my life. But you know what? There's worse stuff that happened to somebody else. If I'm just going to be inside my head and give up on life, then I'm not only giving up on my kids, my family, the kids that look up to me, you know, my friends. I'm giving up on all them, and I'm giving up on myself. And that's unacceptable. We need to find ways to give these kids comfort, because if I'm sure she's not the only person feeling like that right now, you
Right.
know. If she keeps an outlook like that, then her situation isn't going to get, I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller.
Right.
And from what I've seen, if you give up that early, then so if I'm going to decide that I'm going to be all selfish and not be a part of the collective, then I'm not taking part in society. In society, we all sign a contract that says we're going to stay in our lane, we're going to obey certain laws.
Yeah.
And by automatically discarding yourself or removing yourself from the collective, then you're going to come up short when you're in your 30s. And let me tell you, the 20s go by faster than you think.
I think that was a really good point, just to kind of summarize and still add a little bit to that. Again, your 20s, again, are probably going to be most likely your first real world experiences with seeing everything as a whole, either whether you're out of high school. If you do get a chance to go to college, once you finish college, okay, you're out of that. Now it's look for a full-time job or figure out if I'm moving out or anything like that. Life is going to be hard. And again, as he said, wisdom. You want to first get knowledge, real world experience, get knowledge. Knowledge becomes wisdom. Wisdom becomes insight. So knowing the facts, how the facts affect everything, and then how you can use those facts and that wisdom to change your own life.
That is an excellent formula, and you put that very, very good. That was nice. I like how you put that, man.
You give me too much credit. But yeah, I think that's kind of the initial advice I'd like to provide her. But again, all we know from her life is from this video. So again, I'm not insinuating that she has any sort of lifestyle, but this would be what I would start to say to her.
And every time you try to get up, your 20s beat your ass some more. That might sound a little bit dramatic, but that's truly how I feel sometimes in my 20s, man. So like right at that cusp of like being a child and then being an adult in so many different ways. I mean, like socially, emotionally, physically, my body has been going through some changes that I don't like, I'm not a fan of. I'm like, ma'am, what are you doing? And my mom always said, like, take care of your body when you're young, because once you get older, it just starts to change. When she said once you get older, I thought she was like 30 and 40. Not 22. Not 22. Like, why is my stomach acting like this? Why do I have cellulite? I never had. That's physically. And then emotionally, I constantly feel like I should be repressing my emotions because that's what adults do. So when I'm upset about something, I'm like, no, I'm an adult. I'm going to handle this. I'm going to repress this and be the bigger person. And I think that's bullshit. I think your 20s is the time to not be the bigger person. Curse them out today.
Okay. Couple things. Well, I'll just start off with the main thing. I don't believe repressing your emotions is healthy. I believe dealing with your emotions in an appropriate manner is the way to go. I mean, if you're in a job setting and you're angry,
Right.
now you just don't go off cursing at people and
Right.
throwing your stuff all over the place and, you know, going ham. You can't do that, you know. But you can articulate and advocate for yourself. So if there's a situation that's making you mad, first identify the situation, identify what part of yours it is, and then identify what part is the other person's or party involved. And then that way, if you go to somebody to mediate or you go directly to that person, then you can convey what you're feeling at that time and handle that. A lot of people mistake being tactful and assertive as aggression, and that's not it. You know, you don't have to be complacent. You do have rights as an individual, but there's also a time, a place, and a way to handle things like that. So it's not good to repress those emotions, because if you do that, if you push that stuff down, it's going to come out, and it's going to come out in a weird way in front of weird people, and you're just, you know, it's just going to be a bad situation for you. So anybody watching, and to you, Miss Lady, if you get a chance to watch this video, don't push it down. You know, like you said, you're an adult now. So you have to think of a way that's going to get your needs fulfilled and also not leave you in a situation.
I'm not trying to promote violence, and I'm not trying to promote reckless behavior. What I was trying to say is that now is the time to learn how to express yourself.
I think it came out a little bit strange regardless. But
Right, on both ends. I mean, because at the same time, like, you're apologizing, you're still saying that what you said in the first place was okay. But she did kind of come back to what I was saying. Like, you do need to advocate for yourself, and you do need to articulate and use your words.
right.
You're trying to find a space of not acting like a child, like throwing temper tantrums. If you're adulting right, because I know a couple of adults who just, they're not trying to adult, they just stayed childlike while their bodies kept growing. But if you're
Amen, little
right,
sister.
you're trying to grow. It's a constant battle of, I want to throw a temper tantrum and cry. And so it's kind of like understanding, okay, the temper tantrum part's not fine, but the crying part is fine. We're allowed to cry. So what can we do about the situation now? And people are not, like, your parents are not fixing problems for you anymore. Your parents can't call university and say, hey, you gave my baby a B minus. I think she deserved an A. Your parents can't call your significant other and say,
You're not treating my child right.
your parents can't call your job and say,
Why are you doing this to my child? Like,
that's not how it works anymore. And that's a very interesting transition. Not that my mom did that too much. Like, I'm pretty self-sufficient, you know.
And
Did you catch that comment?
which one?
Hold on. I'll go back.
Like, your parents are not fixing problems for you anymore. Your parents can't call university and say, hey, you gave my baby a B minus. I think she deserved an A. Parents can't call your job and say,
why are you doing this to my child? Like,
that's not how it works anymore. And that's a very interesting transition. Not that my mom did that too much. Like, I'm pretty self-sufficient, you know.
Now that my parent did that too much, I'm pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gonna let that one go? Or?
No, Alright, okay. You're pretty self-sufficient at home at your mom's house right now. I mean, nothing wrong with that at all. There's
What I took from that is like my mom didn't do that too much. So you're saying your mom called in and say, "Why are you?"
At work and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that, I mean, wow. Like,
I think that would, if
that would be extremely inappropriate.
Yeah,
Like,
even if your parent had enough, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, if they were big enough to where they had some sway,
yeah.
I would be embarrassed if
Yeah.
I had an adult that called in and said, "Why did you give my baby a B?"
Yeah. Well, now, okay, I got to play devil's advocate this time.
Okay.
All right, now my youngest daughter,
Okay.
Brienne, and some of you watching her, you know Brienne, she's a very hard worker. And, you know, my kid she got in trouble one time. But as far as her grades go, like, straight A's, her whole academic life. And so when she came home with a C minus one day, I wanted to know what was going on, because this isn't behavior. Come to find out, my daughter had turned in the paper a couple minutes late. Now, I understand that this was a regular behavior, but when she turned it in like a little bit late, and she explained to him what had happened. You know, her mom works weird hours. She gets dropped off at different places to get to school. Sometimes stuff gets left. So when that paper came in late, that was a big part of her grade, you know, like 25% of her grade or something like that. Now, if you notice, my daughter always brings in her homework. And it's always, you know, 90%, 100%. I had to say something to this man. My daughter, did you handle this appropriately? Is this a learned is this a regular behavior? Because I know, because we work with teachers, and they're regular people. And, you know, if they want to give somebody a break, they can give somebody a break. There's certain ones that they don't like. I was like, you gave her this grade, but you didn't give her an opportunity to fix it, and you also didn't tell her anything like that. So I can't. I stepped in one time as a dad.
Okay, hold on. So, was this a male teacher or a female teacher?
It was a male teacher. It was a male teacher.
How scared was he when you came in to talk to him?
Oh, he was like, he was no eye contact, man. Like, you know, he was sitting down at the
Oh my goodness, I feel so bad for that guy.
Hey, I was my school guy. I was my at work self. I wasn't year 2005 me, you know? He was pretty frightened, man, and I feel bad, but hey,
That dude's probably going through therapy.
hey, she got an A. But that's as far as my interjections go. I don't do that too often because I want her to be independent, you know, and I definitely would never call a job, you know, again.
I'm gonna leave this part in there because I think it not only makes interesting content, but I think as well with your position versus my position. Obviously, when you have kids, then yeah, I can understand I can empathize with your position and everything. So I respect your decision, and at the same time, I feel very bad for the
dude,
the dude, and you know, I would pay money to possibly see how that went down, but
she still got to all high school, bro. I'll let you know.
That's great.
What do I do? She could pretty much give me like step by step, this is what I think you should do, like pretty much in detail, like this would be a good idea. But now she's like, well, you have to decide how you want to handle it. Girl, if I knew how I wanted to handle it, I would have handled it. And I don't know how, so I haven't handled it. That has been happening a lot in my 20s.
Yeah, when you do love people or care for them, you want them to make their own decisions and gain that life experience. So that's why you won't necessarily provide them with immediate advice.
People who used to give me great, solid direction on what to do, and they're like, you had to figure it out for yourself now. Isn't that the beautiful thing of being an adult? No, it's not the beautiful thing of being an adult. Like, please tell me what to do. I beg of you. Like, I just want to be told what to do sometimes. And people, they stop doing that when you're in your 20s.
It's that old saying, you give a man a fish, he eats tonight. You teach a man to fish, he eat for life. And that's what you have to do with your children. Instead of straight out asking, an exercise any of you guys looking, anybody that's struggling with the same thing, is by bringing it up in a discussion, not in a question answer format. You know, just by discussing or debating a topic, you can get the other person's insight without actually asking for advice.
Yeah, provide options.
Provide options. And that way, you know, you can pick a piece from this person, a piece from this person, a piece from this person, think it over a little bit, use your discretion how to weave in and out of those solutions and see what you come up with on the other side. Because there is no exact science to life. There's no exact science to relationships. There's no exact science to being successful. Trial and error. There's a lot of luck involved. Also, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I mean, life is tough, but in a lot of instances, it's fair. You get what you put in. And if you put in the work to figure out how to solve these problems instead of somebody just giving you the answer, then you're not going to be dependent on somebody to solve your problems all the time. You're going to be resourceful. And that's going to help you out in the long run because that cuts time out of the whole situation. And guess what? Time is money.
Yeah.
A whole decade out of your life. We got about a 70-year lifespan, 70, 80 if you're lucky. 10 years is a big chunk of that. You won't regret it. I think that's a healthy response that her mother gave to her. One day I may pass and my daughter can't come to me for advice. So the only advice that she has is the stuff that I've instilled into her, the values from the time she was born till now. If I can no longer do that, then she has to be resourceful and dig in. If you have any type of empathy towards another person, then you can understand what their goal is, why they're doing something. You might not agree with it, but you can understand it. And by understanding it, that way you can maneuver and do the best thing that's possible for you.
Right.
And that's why I think that what her mother said to her was completely correct and appropriate. And it sounds like she got a good mom, so.
And then responsibility. I've heard a lot of people talk about when you get older, you get more responsibility, blah, blah, blah. Which I understand. But as of right now, I still live at home with my parents. So, like, I don't got no bills to pay. I really don't have much responsibility. I just need to keep myself alive. And, hey, I've done a pretty good job with that.
I'm going to pause that right there and interject. Even though she says that she lives at home, she has no bills to pay, I'm assuming, yes, you still have bills to pay. I'm assuming a cell phone at least. If you have a car, which by 22 I hope you would, even though it's paid off, you still have to pay insurance. So you still have bills to pay whether you recognize it or not. And if you don't have bills to pay, right now may be a good time to save.
Yeah, save everything. Become a minimalist and save.
So I don't know. I don't think the responsibility part for me so far has been too bad. But there's also like the looming, not dread, that's a strong word, but the looming feeling of I am supposed to be doing more. That's something that I feel so constantly and I don't really know how to shake.
That right there is your drive. Do not ignore that feeling. Everybody listening, that is your drive. When you feel like you're not doing enough, it doesn't matter if you're working 80-hour weeks, but if you feel personally that you're not doing enough, do something about it because you can't get that time back. So let me tell you, the older you get, the more intense that feeling is and the less you can do about it. Right now, do not ignore that feeling. Start working on it.
I think especially with that, the fact that she feels that and acknowledges that she has that feeling is quite a bit ahead of most people, because most people will either ignore it and then they'll go stagnant or get overly comfortable, and then from there it becomes harder to motivate themselves in order to actually do
Exactly. Your body tells you certain things. If you're craving water, then that means that your body needs it. And so the brain's telling you things are going to change, and they're going to change really fast. And they're vital in having a real life and experiencing your real life to the fullest, because you'll never truly live if there's nothing on the line. You know? You'll never truly feel alive. You're just going to be dead weight floating around until you're like 40.
Either that or you look back and then you're like regret, oh, I should have done something then or whatnot. So.
Like, when I quit my job, I just felt like a failure, if we're being honest. I felt like I had failed because you need a job to survive. You need a job to, like, get your own place, to buy food, to buy a car, to be a full adult, right? And so for me to throw this opportunity that I had financially to make me money out of the window, I felt like a failure. I was like, that was, to a certain extent, I felt kind of irresponsible for it. But if I got into the story of why I quit, you'd be like, girl, the money. Like, you needed to get up out of there, which I did.
I'm going to stop right there. The fact that you quit and you acknowledge you need the money, yes, that was a mistake. I'm not going to grill you on that. If the circumstances, as you started to infer there, if it really was that bad, you should always look for another job. But considering this is your first major job in the field that you're wanting to work, it's going to look extremely bad when you try to return that field again. But if it's in the field that you want to work, I would have at least stuck with it to gain enough experience. That way, when you go to look for another job, you're ahead of all the other newbies that are trying to get the same job just getting out of college. Because they're going to look at your resume, and if you only work there 3 months and then you quit, it's like, well, why'd she quit this job? She can't handle it or can't cut it or...
I'm not going to pull any punches right there. I empathize and I sympathize with you because that's tough. But guess what? They don't work for you. You work for them. You were given an opportunity. And if you felt you were treated unfairly, then, you know, there's certain steps that you can take. With HR, if there was some kind of legal basis, then you could have went that route. But if it wasn't anything going on that was, you know, discriminatory, sexual harassment, things of that nature, if it was just personal beef between you and an employee or a supervisor, then that's something you just got to get over. Put your nose down and you work. And then you try to find something else while you're still working.
Right.
Hand in your 2 weeks notice and move on. Don't burn any bridges because those will come back. You know, that work history never goes away.
And that's actually a perfect point. Like, even if it was bad, at least completing the term, and if it wasn't your supervisor but it was another employee, your supervisor could either provided you with a recommendation or at least been able to speak on your behalf, this person did a good job, or they always were consistent at work, versus just abruptly quitting right there, say 3 or 6 months or 1 year, before even 1 year. I don't think it was 1 year.
This pressure of I should be doing just like a lot more. I should be in a relationship. I should be very close to getting out of my parents' house. I should be more self-sufficient financially. I should not spend so much time on my damn phone. I should have all of these things that I don't have, but like no one told me I should have that.
You got a good head on your shoulders and you have the right idea. It's just execution. And I have no doubt that this kid's special and gonna do something with her life. And
right.
So yeah, that's what I think. But you got it. I mean, you could tell by the way she talks. She's very intelligent. Good head on her shoulders. She's prepared. She has the tools. If nobody's pushing you out the nest and stuff, then you got to do that on your own. You know.
Right.
Sometimes, and it's hard. It's hard as a parent to like send your babies out in the world, man. But
right.
Sometimes it's the best thing for them, man.
Yeah, I agree.
But something that has helped a lot is being just like grateful for what I have. Every morning I write down 5 things I'm grateful for. Every night I write down 5 things I'm grateful for. And that has helped shift my mindset. But like old habits die hard. So like we're still working on it, if we're just being honest with ourselves. And so I feel like at this point in life, I have to learn to like myself. It's weird because like I love myself, but sometimes I don't like myself. And I don't quite know how to explain it. Like, I love myself in terms of, I love myself enough to take care of myself physically. I love myself enough to do my best to take care of myself mentally and emotionally. And like, I love me. Like I do love me. But I think that's more so external in a way, like physical. Like, I think I'm very pretty, not to sound vain. I think I'm really cute. I think I got a great body. Like I love all those things about me. But there are certain aspects about me that I don't like. If that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like that makes sense. Like, think of someone you love. There's stuff about them that you still don't like, and that's fine. That's normal. Probably how it should be. So, I think once I get to a point where I love and like myself, a whole new Jewel will be born. But until then, I'm still just kind of trying to figure it out. Like, there are some habits that I have that I don't like. I'm like, Jewel, please, dear God, stop that. And I'm like, okay, we'll stop. And then it starts again because they're just habits. I'm trying to break them. It's been...
Now, that feeling right there isn't a feeling that you want to go away. That's called growth. And you find things about yourself that you dislike, or maybe you see somebody and you notice a behavior that you share and you dislike that, and it gets brought up to your attention. And every so often you think about it, and then you work on changing the behavior. It's not an overnight thing because that's who you are as a person. Making personal change and being honest with yourself is one of the hardest jobs that you'll ever have.
Yeah.
And because it requires complete and utter honesty with yourself. You know, we all step out the house with a facade for the world, and sometimes it doesn't turn off when we go home. We have to play that part in order to keep it real. You know, not keeping it real, but keep it real to yourself, you know, so you're not getting a glitch in your matrix, you know, because, right. But all those things are those little pet peeves that you find in yourself. Those are ways, as you gain more wisdom and insight, those are ways that you cultivate growth within yourself. So they're very important. So don't just be dismissive of them. Just to reiterate, it shows what kind of good head the kid got on her shoulders, right? Because she recognizes these things. It's just she doesn't have the insight or the wisdom to kind of connect the dots.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then I guess that's kind of part of what we're doing here by deconstructing this video, is kind of pointing out things that us as two older guys, we can never relate to her experience completely, you know what I'm saying? Being a black woman and a young one at that, like we've never done that. But we are human beings that experience the same type of day-to-day struggle because we're all human beings. Like I said before, we're a collective. We are a community. We are a society. Just as long as you keep on trying to fix the things that you dislike for whatever reason they may be. But first of all, you need to understand why you dislike that. And what are those things that you dislike? To somebody else, it might be petty. Don't let that discourage you from changing it, because it's not petty to you.
Before we get into the final thoughts, referring to your 20s as a joke, no, I I think there's a better metaphor, or better comparison that you could probably use.
Going into the video, that's what stuck with me. Before watching the video all the way through, I have this preconception with a strong statement like your 20s are a joke.
Right.
Because I remember my 20s and they were certainly not a joke. It's probably one of the toughest times of my life. It was extremely hard. And my teenage years were awful. And my 20s were worse. I came out the other side. I'm still alive. I'm a grandpa now. So, but, you know, the way that was worded, it was kind of hard for me to empathize with that part. But once she started talking, then I got to understand her more throughout the video.
Overall, how would you rate her video?
On a scale of like 1 to 5, I would say like a 4. Because it was an important topic. I do think that she handled it very maturely and positive in some cases. For a 22-year-old young lady to understand the ins and outs of life already and then give like perfect advice, who can expect that out of anybody? And so like I think the more I listened to her, I got a better feel for her intellect and kind of like what she was going through and the reason she made the video. Whatever audience she was shooting for, I hope that they get the complete message from her, because there were a few different times that she could have worded things different, and for the most part, like I said, 4 out of 5, just because of the pure honesty and stuff, you know what I'm saying? It takes a lot, and to bury yourself for the whole world to see.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's a mad respect. Mad respect, little sister.
I'd agree with that. Overall, I'd be kind of curious to see how she turns out with, you know, some of the decisions and long-term growth. I think she did an excellent job on the video. I think probably 4 out of 5 or 8 out of 10 is fair. So, again, I appreciate everyone coming to check us out today. We got
Chubby Bobby
and Kid Hero. If you want us to do more of this kind of thing in the future, let us know. Leave a comment down in the comment section. Appreciate the likes, and we will see you next time.
Peace.